Hi, today I'm Aimee Cross, and today we're going to talk about filling in the blanks. Filling in your family history story. It's so important. It's more than just records. They're more than just names. And while it can be a lot of fun to build your tree and see your tree going back generation and generation, that's so exciting. It really is. To learn the details about your family members really makes a big difference. It helps you get to know them better. It helps you appreciate their lives and everything that they've been through in order to get your family where it is today. It also can help you explain certain things about your family, why your family does this or why your family struggled with that. Learning those details really does help you draw closer to your family and answer a lot of questions about them. This topic was another viewer suggestion, and I really thought it was a great idea because it's something that involves digging a little bit more deeper. It's a little bit more difficult to find those stories, to find the details about your family and to get the whole story about their lives. So let's talk about some of the ways that you can find these facts that make all the difference in the world. I'm going to give you 7 suggestions that hopefully will make the difference for you. The first, when you find a record, look at the image. Always look at the image. Now, I've said this on some of my other videos, but the reason that this is so important is sometimes there's information on the image that has not been indexed that provides you a lot of detail about your ancestor that you may not have known. As well, look at the images on either side of the image that you're looking at because they may provide more information. On any of these programs, there's little arrows usually somewhere on either side of the image that you can click on to look at the images before and the images after. That's really important. What are some of the facts that you can find out? Well, let me tell you. On a census record, and they varied by year, some census records asked for whether they owned real estate or whether they owned personal estate, if they served in the military. Naturalization paperwork can have a lot of additional information in it, as well as marriage records. Sometimes an old marriage record might have a note from the parent providing permission for this underage daughter or son to marry. And then there's draft cards, and draft cards are great. Let me tell you why. At least United States draft cards give you a physical description. They tell you color of eyes, and in the World War II draft card, it tells you the color of hair, color of eyes, complexion. In the World War I draft cards, it says just kind of whether they were a slender build or, something like that. But either way, it's interesting. And if they had any characteristics like maybe a tattoo or they were missing a finger or something like that, that's on the draft card. In addition, draft cards ask the name of the employer and what kind of occupation that you had. Now, census records asked you what kind of work that you did, but the draft card actually gives you the name of the employer. So then you can do some research on the employer and learn more about them. So super fun. So you want to take a look at those records. And the second tip I'm going to give you is to look for clues in those records. Now, we've kind of covered a little bit of that already, like a draft card, like the employers and stuff like that. Those clues can lead you to other records. If you see that they owned real estate in a census record, that means you need to be looking for deeds or for land grants because that can help you find out where your ancestors lived. You can even get pictures of that property and find exactly where they lived on a map. You can look at where railroads were near them and how big the town was at the time that they lived there. All of these little details help you put together the story of your ancestor. The other thing that you really want to discover a little bit more about if you find it in your ancestor's history is if they served in the military. You want to get all the military records that you can because you can learn about where they served, what battles they were in. All sorts of information is available for military service, and that's great, interesting information. Number 3, you've kind of done all you can with records. You've looked at records, you've pursued those leads. Now what are we going to do next? The next thing is newspapers. I love newspapers. Newspapers are great because you'll find the craziest stuff in newspapers. I have an example here of a will of I think it's my 3rd great grandmother, and her will actually was destroyed in the San Francisco fire, but this newspaper article survived, and it talked about the fact that she wanted her children to be wise in their lives. It's so funny. So I love that. And it told me a lot about my great grandmother. Other things that you can find out, I've seen before, is that somebody won the county fair. for something. That can be in a newspaper. Newspapers can talk about visits made by other family members. I have a newspaper article that outlines what gifts one of my great-grandparents were given for their 50th wedding anniversary. And one of the items we still had in our family, and we didn't know where it had come from. Well, it was from their 50th wedding anniversary. It was a gift from one of their children. Newspaper articles can go into a lot of detail about somebody's life and provide you fun facts. So check out all the newspaper articles you can for where your ancestor lived. Oh, and also look at where they lived previously too. Like a lot of times you'll see an obituary in a hometown newspaper where maybe they grew up, even though they had moved away from that area long ago. So be thorough in your newspaper research. My next thing are these old county history books. They were county history biographies. Sometimes genealogists call them mud books. And I don't really know why. I should know that, but I don't. Anyway, these county histories and biographies talk a lot about the people that lived in a community. And this information, I don't know if you remember, but there was kind of a thing in the 80s about a who's who. Do you want to be in the who's who? And they'd send you an invitation and you would submit your information and you'd pay money. Well, that's how these county histories were. A publisher would come into a community and they would say, if you want to write a paragraph about your family member, give us a fee and we'll put you in this book and you'll be immortalized forever. Well, they were. So the information that's within those sometimes needs to be taken with a grain of salt because sometimes it's not all true, but it can be really interesting. So you want to be checking out the county histories and the county biographies of the counties and even the state. I've also seen state biographies as well and cities. So you want to be looking for those books that talk about the communities that your ancestors lived in because you might find a gold mine within. All right, next is family stories. We all have them. And if you haven't gathered them, gather them. Gather your family stories from the family members that you have that are alive. They may remember stories about their great-grandparents or their great-great-grandparents, things that have been passed along down by the ages. And I have some other videos that can give you clues on how to do interviews with family members, but you definitely want to gather that information. Now, do you need to kind of check it out, make sure it's legit? Yes, you do, but it's still good stuff. So make sure you gather that information while you can and then incorporate it into your family history. All right, 6 is FamilySearch. Now, a lot of people know of FamilySearch for their global tree, and some people get frustrated by it, and some people know it for the records that they have there. But a lot of people don't know about all of the information that has been put into FamilySearch. Let me explain. Now, FamilySearch has a tree that they're combining. It's a community tree. So if you contribute to the tree on FamilySearch, it's not your tree. It's not like an ancestry tree. It's information that you're putting with other people and other people can make changes to it and things like that, which frustrates some people. However, this community effort brings other information into your tree. Let me show you the page of one of my husband's ancestors. All right, here's John Lawrence Smolder's bills. And if you go to this memories tab right here, this is the gold. And you can have family members that you may not have put them into FamilySearch, but other people might have. So you want to go into FamilySearch. An account there is free. It won't cost you anything. You want to go into FamilySearch and you want to see whether or not anybody put information about your family member within. Let me show you some of the information that John has on him. So other family members have put all these pictures of John Bills with some of the information in there about him. And as well, they've added documents. Here's a life sketch that somebody did. Now, where that information came from, it might say on the life sketch, it might not. Here is a newspaper article. Now, John Bills was actually John Smolder's, and then he changed his name because of an adoption and stepfather, stuff like that, to John Bills. And so this is an article that talked about his name change. Here is a reward for his body because he disappeared. He drowned and his body was washed downstream. And so this article talks about it. What great information to know about your family. This is a tragic story, but it's so interesting. That sounds kind of graphic, I guess. Kind of modeling, I don't know. Anyway, here is a letter that was written about John Bills, and here is another life sketch. So we have all kinds of information as well as some stories that have been posted about John Bills. So a lot of people don't know to check this memories tab. You never know who else in the community is putting information up there. That is also true with Ancestry and Find My Past and My Heritage. You want to look for your ancestors in other trees, not because you want to adopt the tree. I warn against that. Not a good idea because sometimes it's wrong. But you do want to look and see if they have stories and if they have pictures in their tree that you may not have. And it also gives you somebody to talk to. Because the people that have contributed to FamilySearch, and when you have a membership, you can see who contributed the pictures that I showed you a few minutes ago, or the stories. And the same is true on Ancestry. And through those different programs, you can email through the program those individuals and say, hey, where'd you get your information? I'd love to know more about this family member. So never neglect these other sources, these other websites, as informations for not only the stories and pictures, but also the people that submitted it and that may have more. All right, and then last but not least, if you can do it, I really recommend that you travel to your ancestors' home if you can, or their area where they lived. There's a couple things that you can do. If you have a deed, you can go to the deed office and they can tell you exactly where that land was. And you can go there. I've done it. It's so cool. Where your ancestor built their farm, where they built their family's lives. It's really cool. You can also see the town. You can see kind of like what was around. You can see the old buildings that may have still been in existence when your ancestor lived there. As well as you can go to the local libraries and the historical centers, because it's in those that you may find newspapers that you're not finding online. You might find other stories that have been submitted to libraries. I have done that multiple times where I've walked into a little library in a tiny community and they've had a ton of information on the residents from those communities that provided me lots of information that I hadn't gotten before. So if you can, and you can contact those guys by email, I guess. But it's so much more fun if you can to go yourself and walk in the places that your ancestors walked. Take pictures, you can put those in your books. So to end the video though, I want to show you some examples of what I've either done for clients or other people have done to tell the stories about their families to their descendants. Here is a book written by my friend Doris James. It's called Stories from Grammy Bird's Tree. Doris is Grammy Bird, and the way she got her name is so cute. But another story. Anyway, she created this great book that's filled with these stories that she had collected from the family. She's got a picture of the individual, some stories about their lives, and then she asked her grandchildren to draw a picture that pertains to the stories of this guy's life. This is Typhoon George, she called him. His name's George Soleil. He lived through a typhoon, needless to say. Anyway, great book. You can see in this picture here, he's holding on for dear life to the sail. Love it. This is a great way to tell your family the stories that you've collected. In a book that I did for a client, the Bickfords, we included at the very end a handwritten history of the family by their mom. And it's pages and pages, but we wanted it in her writing and we put it at the end of the book. And the book's filled with other stories too. Here's another book I did for a client, and they really wanted to focus on telling the story of the great-grandparents. And so here's an image of this page that we did for them. And here's some of the third great-grandparents and how we incorporated some of the stories of their lives into this book. And finally, my last example is another book I did for a client, Piecing Together the McDaniel Family Heritage. In this instance, we didn't have a lot of stories that were passed down through the family, but we did find that one of the family members served in the military in the Revolutionary War. Because we knew what regiment he served in, we were able to know what battles he fought in and some other interesting information about his service in the Revolutionary War. And so here's another example of how we put that into a book. I will tell you, knowing these stories will make your family history much more interesting. And most genealogists are frustrated because the other people in their family just don't get it. We get all excited about stuff that our children or grandchildren or siblings or parents or whatever, just they're like, okay, whatever. But when you tell them a story about that person, it becomes an entirely different ballgame. And all of a sudden they're dialed in. So you want to know the stories about your ancestors. I promise if you do this, if you spend the time to try to learn more about their lives, to fill in the blanks of their lives, you're going to enjoy genealogy even more. Promise. No doubt about it. I hope this video has been of help to you. Please like, please give me a thumbs up. And please subscribe. Please click the bell once you subscribe. That way you're notified when I release a new video. I really do appreciate that. There's a couple of other videos showing here that might be of interest to you, and I hope you have a great day.